Hello. So we are going to continue with working on evaluating expressions using GEMS and exponents. The GEMS acronym stands for grouping symbols, exponents, multiply and divide, and subtract and add. Now, when we multiply and divide and add and subtract, we do it from left to right, just like we're reading a book. So when we read this way. That's how we do our multiplication and division when we are looking through our equation. Whatever's to the left, we do that first. But before we can even get to multiplication and division, we have to see if there's any groupings and then any exponents. We haven't done any groupings up until this point. And now we're going to start seeing some groupings and practice with some groupings. So again, I have a little list here along the way for us to be able to see what we're doing. However, I'm also going to show you as I walk through these steps how I think through this problem. So when I look at this problem first, I'm going to be looking for groupings. And when I look over here, I see that there's actually two groupings. There's this bar-like grouping, and then there's this parentheses-like grouping. Now, when you have multiple groupings, you want to always do the one that's smaller and inside before you do the bigger one. Okay? So it's kind of like you're looking at the smallest part first, the smallest parentheses first to do. So I have that here. Do the math in the small parentheses first. All right, so what that looks like is, actually I'm going to see if I can make it gold enough for us to see. 14, oh, I already made a mistake. I was going from left to right, but I didn't start in my small parentheses. So let's try this again. 12 minus 11 plus 2. That's what we are going to be working on right now. So within this parentheses, I go through my list again. Do I see any exponents? No, I see some up here, but I don't see any in my small grouping. Do I see any multiplication or division? Not in the small grouping. Do I see any subtraction and addition? I do. I have a subtraction sign and I have an addition sign. And this tells me I have to do it from left to right. So I'm getting out my calculator again. And I want to make sure that I am getting my correct answers. So as we're working through these things, remind yourself that it is not important to know the multiplication or division as much as it on your own as it is to be able to do the order of these equations. So you can use your calculator. So 12 minus 11, you may not need a calculator for that, is 1. And then 1 plus 2 is 3. So my answer is 3. Okay, so I subtracted and added, and I got 3. Now I'm going to rewrite my equation. So I have my parenthesis bar-like. I have 14.5 minus, and we just did this addition and subtraction. We came up with our 3. So we're putting the 3 in the small parentheses. And then there's this squared. And then we have our bar parentheses again. Times 5 squared. Whew, all right. So we've narrowed it down a little. So now we need to go back through our list over here and start at the top. Do we have any groupings that we need to do? Yes, we do. We have this 14.5 minus 3 squared, right? So we need to complete that first because this times 5 squared is outside of the parentheses. So we need to do the grouping first. So if I look at that first, within this parenthesis bracket, we see that there is an exponent. So we recognize the grouping. And now we see an exponent, 3 squared. So three squared means 3 times itself 2 times. So 3 times 3 equals, and again, please feel free to use your calculator, 9. So now we have already done this. So now we get to plug in the 9 there. So let's rewrite our equation. It's important to rewrite our equation every time so that we see what we have to do next. 14.5 minus, and this is where the 9 comes in, 9 times 5 squared. Okay, so we went through the grouping. We went through the exponent. We know we're working in this little grouping still, because there's still more to do. Now we go to multiply and divide. Is there any multiplication and division in this small grouping? I only see the multiplication and division outside of the grouping, and we're not working on that right now. We're sticking with this grouping that we identified up here. So, addition and subtraction is the next step. Do we have any subtraction or addition? Yes, we do. So we need to subtract 14.5 minus 9. And when we do that, we get 5.5. Now again, feel free to use your calculator. So now we've done this, so we can cross these out, and this is where our 5.5 will go. So when we rewrite our equation, we'll go 5. I feel like my handwriting is getting a little more messy. Sorry, bear with me. 5.5 times 5 squared. Well, grouping symbols. We do have still stuff in this grouping that we decided we were going to work on, right? We worked up here, we worked up here, we worked down here. But we don't have any more addition, subtraction, division, exponents, nothing in there. This is just a number itself now. So now we can go back to the top. Do we have any grouping symbols? We do, but again, like we just discussed, this is the whole number. So we don't need to do any more addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, or exponents in there. So we move on to the next one, exponents. Do we have any exponents that we need to do? We do. We have this 5 squared. So let's remind ourselves. Does 5 times 2 equal 5 squared? Would I do 5 times 2? No. Remember, this 5 is the base number and this 2 is the exponent. So the 2 tells us that we need to multiply 5 by itself 2 times. So 5 times 5 equals 25. So now we've completed this exponent. So we're going to rewrite our equation. Remember, it's important that every time we continue writing our equation so that we can see what we need to do next. So we have this 5.5 again. Times, and we figured out that 5 squared is 25. So we again start at the top. Grouping. Well, we've discussed this grouping is already finished. It's just got those brackets around it. Do we see any exponents? I don't see any exponents. Do we see any multiplication or division? Yeah, we see a multiplication sign. And this is our actual last thing we need to do, right? Because then we'll have one number left. So, get out your calculator. 5.5 times 25 equals and our answer is 137.5. Now, again, on this next slide, it looks a little bit prettier, a little bit easier to read, and you can see more clearly how we went about replacing certain numbers with what we found the answer to be. Just a reminder, as you go through these next few slides and work on this, you should be using this step system each time. If you're working within a grouping, you are going to go through this list before you are done with that grouping. Once you're done with that grouping, you're going to see if there's another grouping that's bigger that you need to go through the list. And then finally, if there are no more groupings left, then you're just going to go through this list until you're finished. If you have any questions, please ask. This can be a bit of a difficult or confusing process, but once you get the hang of it, it's really just about repeating going through each step. Repeating going through each step. You're going to continue doing the slides until you get to the stop sign. Take your time, think through it. It's fine to struggle. You're going to do great.